Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we're doing a little bit of a bonus video because I want to go and bring light to this situation. Now, this might be a little bit of a niche one out there when it comes to most folks, but when it comes to me, something like emulation, Nintendo, and all this kind of big game preservations, but as well, kind of just the act of Nintendo kind of being the ruthless ninjas that they are, is somewhat kind of interesting to go talk about. Now, if you guys have missed it, Nintendo has, well, always been somewhat of the, we have our company, we have our brand, we want to keep it the way we want to present it, which is somewhat admirable to a somewhat fault, where there's also a lot of issues when it came to YouTube, when it came to Twitch streamers, when it came to actually like me even making money off of, say, showing like a Mario Kart 8 gameplay or streaming it on Twitch. And Nintendo's always kind of been somewhat set in their ways. But one thing to note is that there's also other things out there that people have been utilizing to go and say play games or put games on PC or even just save games as a whole, called emulation or emulating. Now, typically, when it comes to emulating as a whole, I would say it's usually pretty okay. Like, a lot of folks out there are okay with emulation. I myself have emulated myself. And the kind of the legal gray area is if you have owned the game, like you've bought in the game itself, then you can technically go and legally use an emulation to, well, save the game, play the game on PC. Like, you essentially own the files, so you can do whatever you want with it. And that's what a lot of people typically have kind of kept as their mainstay mindset. Or let's say I bought like a Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and then I have the game physically on hand. So if I want to use an emulator, whether it's for me to go and change the game files and maybe make it like a 4K or add mods to it or whatever, or as well just play it on PC and have the emulation core files, then there's no big issues with it because I own the original game. Now, that's kind of been like the somewhat precedent we've kind of seen set for like the legalities of it. But right now, Nintendo could actually be completely changing up the gaming sphere, and right now Yuzu, who is also a big emulation company, got sued, got called out by Nintendo, and things, well, are a little bit on the risky side. So I'm going to go talk about this, talk about the future of game preservation, emulation, everything else, and also Nintendo being crazy on suing folks, and I want to hear your thoughts and comments on all this type of stuff down below, especially if you guys are like classic gamers and retro gamers too. Make sure you guys are subscribed. We're probably live up on Twitch right this second. Of course, check out the sellout links. Let's go dive on it. So as I've mentioned, Nintendo is a company that obviously makes games, makes software, and there's two things I want you guys to know before we deep dive in this video. Number one is that Nintendo doesn't usually like emulation, mainly because think about old N64 games or old prior games, they typically do resell them, and they want to probably go and resell them. And the opposite side for the consumers is that Nintendo doesn't really have a good and easy way for us to go and buy out these games. Sometimes they don't even sell them, and they'll sit on the IPs for a long time, and that leads to a lot of folks who are wanting to go and emulate games because Nintendo is just doing nothing with their IPs. So it's kind of one of those things where Nintendo's like, maybe in the next 3 years we want to go and sell like maybe an old school F-Zero game. Okay, we'll be able to make F-Zero 100. Okay, and then other people out there are like, hey, it's taking you 15 years to do anything with this IP. I'm just going to give you guys 4K mods for this random F-Zero game, and we can make it a little bit more fun. And that's kind of like where it's kind of standing right now. And once again, the legalities are people who do that, if they own the game originally, they should be fine. It's legally fine. They bought the license and software. They're okay. And Nintendo obviously doesn't like this because next part of this is when, let's say when the brand new Zelda games have come out. Sometimes these games and files have come out early, so people are actually playing the games for free, and as well they're also modding the games for free. So if you could, for some odd reason, go and play a 4K Tears of the Kingdom on an emulator for free, because you have all the files out there and you haven't bought the game, for that same logic, the game should be technically illegal to do, but people obviously did it, because a 4K Zelda experience on PC with what, like 60 FPS, looking beautiful, which I saw people doing and even streaming, making content on, that is crazy. That is cool, and I would prefer that 100% of the time over, let's say, a 30 FPS on the Switch, lower resolution, 720p. And this is where that issue kind of started. And this is where Nintendo's also kind of going and taking that big step, where they now went and tried to go and sue Yuzu, which is someone who is an emulation company, and, well, this is both a good thing and a bad thing. Number one, good thing, and I want to put respect on Yuzu for paying the settlement in dealing with the lawsuit. Let's go talk about it. So basically, Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu will settle utterly fold and pay $2.4 million to settle its lawsuit against Nintendo. The emulator was sued for facilitating piracy at a colossal scale, and I would probably say this is going to be highlighting more of like people using Legend of Zelda and playing the game for free and running it on 4K and all the other various games out there. So just over a week ago, Nintendo sued the developers of the leading Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu for facilitating piracy at a colossal scale. Now it appears that Yuzu will give up without a fight and give Nintendo everything they wanted, and it affects the Nintendo 3DS emulator Citra too. Now, so kind of the basic thing is that they're suing them, basically being like, hey, you basically messed us up. You made us lose sales, and it's rough. So according to a joint filing, Tropic Hayes has not only agreed to pay $2.4 million to Nintendo, but also says Yuzu is primarily designed to circumvent and play Nintendo Switch games. The company agrees to be permanently enjoined from working on Yuzu, hosting Yuzu, distributing Yuzu code or features, hosting websites and social media that promote Yuzu, or doing anything else that circumvents Nintendo's copyright protection. And it will also surrender the yuzuemu.org domain name to Nintendo, agreed to delete not only its copies of Yuzu, but also all circumvention tools used for developing or using Yuzu, such as all these like ROM hacks and Atmosphere, Lockpicks, RCM, the dump tools, everything else, and hand over any physical circumvention devices and modified Nintendo hardware to Nintendo. It also agrees to not delete any other evidence that infringes Nintendo's IP rights. Yuzu and Citra developer Bunny confirmed that Yuzu Discord that both the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo 3DS emulators are affected. We write today to inform you that Yuzu and Yuzu support of Citra are being discontinued effective immediately. So that's a lot of wording for legal talk. The idea is Nintendo might actually have something to do with a, like, say, like a 3DS, maybe a flip screen for the Switch 2. No one really knows, but that's somehow what people are maybe expecting. Because the Nintendo 3DS emulator is also maybe how they might be encroaching on old school sales. Like, they might be trying to go and resell those games, like say, imagine any type of 3DS game on like the Switch 2 Super Switch, or even on the Switch itself, and kind of, have a built-in emulation in the system. And as well, they also just don't want people it's kind of basically stealing games. Now, this is actually, I want to say, a lot of credit to Yuzu. Like, obviously, having to go lose a court case sucks, but one big thing to note is that this actually might be a really big win for emulation. Now, you guys might be thinking, wait, what? This guy just got sued and they lost a lot of money. Yuzu, I think, gets our support, because Yuzu, if this was like a big, long-winded court case, this could actually potentially set a precedent on how all emulation might be handled in the future. Now, I'm someone who's actually kind of pro-emulation, at least in my honest opinion, because that means that we have game preservation, or sometimes things, let's say, like the 3DS. As of right this second, you can't really buy games on your 3DS. So how do you get new games or go re-download stuff? You go use an emulator. Like, it makes sense. So the fact that Yuzu kind of folded is not like a bad thing on their end. I think they're doing this for the long-term good of the gaming sphere. Mainly saying, hey, we're not going to let Japanese people, such as Nintendo, which sets like Japanese law, go and establish a, standard for how you're supposed to do with emulation. Because if they would have fought and they would have lost this court case, maybe in theory they could have completely shut down emulation as a whole, at least in Japan. And that would probably mean that there's basically no then Nintendo emulation ever again, because at that point Nintendo in their homeland in Japan has the precedent set that emulation is illegal. So while it might be horrible for them, like, I don't know how you're supposed to even go get $2.4 million, because I'm assuming emulation companies don't really make that much money, but they actually took a really big sacrifice for the gaming sphere to make sure that this is not a brand new precedent and emulation could actually go live on. Now, this is kind of crazy. What they said, had a chance to go and say, Yuzu and its team have always been against piracy. So basically, they don't want people to sell stuff, just utilize it if it's like, something that they own already. We started the projects in good faith out of passion for Nintendo and its consoles and games, and we're not intending to cause harm. But we see now that because our projects can circumvent Nintendo's technological protection measures and allow users to play games outside of their authorized hardware, we have led to extensive privacy. So basically saying, hey, a lot of people use our stuff to go and steal games and bum games and not take advantage of it. In particular, we have been deeply disappointed when users have said our software to leak game content prior to its release and ruin the experience for legitimate purchasers, which once again did happen a lot for Legend of Zelda, like Zelda 1 and 2, both for emulation at the time. First one was for Wii U and second one was for the Switch. And while it was nice to have like a 4K Zelda, some people definitely did not go and buy the game and pay the money for it, which is technically illegal in the piracy and emulation cause. Well, is it really their fault though? And should they be paying $2.4 million? I'd probably say no, as long as it depends on what happened more in the court case. But at the same time, that is rough. So we have come to the decision that we cannot continue to allow this to occur. Piracy was never our intention, and we believe that piracy of video games and on our video game consoles should end. Effective today, we'll be pulling our core repositories offline, discontinuing our Patreon accounts and Discord servers, and soon shutting down our websites. We hope our actions will be a small step towards ending piracy of all creator works. And this is what our Discord post showed over here too as well. So it's kind of crazy because they literally lost $2 million. The emulations and source code are still up, so people in theory could still go utilize it, or if it's open source, go use it too as well. But this is rough to go and see because emulation is a big deal and saving and game preservation matters a lot. I do agree though, you shouldn't be using this type of stuff to steal and nab games that you don't own or never bought and don't have the source code for, but at the same exact time, it's crazy to go and see that this actually happened as a whole. Like, this is pretty much gaming changing, especially
especially if this is also chased on other emulators, and as well, we might even see the loss of emulation as a whole. So I want to hear your thoughts on this kind of crazy story. Give me your thoughts in comments as well. Make sure you guys check out the Twitch if you guys are bored, and I appreciate y'all for watching here in the first place.